In this video, I want to talk a little bit about our Coordinate Forms Job 1 and Coordinate Forms Job 2. Basically, we want to have multiple forms in flight, and we all want to tie them to a unique ID so that when we submit them to the database, we can easily reconstruct a single form submission even though it's across multiple pages. So this is just one way of doing it. This is not to say that this is the only way, but this is the way I've chosen to implement it. So the basic gist right here is I have two jobs, job 1, so we can see right here, and then job 2. And they're essentially identical, only they have slightly different values that we're writing for the GUID value that we write to the database. And that's really where the key of this logic comes in. So let's kind of step with, keep it simple. We'll start with job 1. So in job 1, we need to assign a unique identifier to this form session. And I'm doing that very simply here by, I just Googled for PHP GUID, I found this little code snippet, and I copy and pasted it into my form right here. Then I take that function and I call it and assign a PHP session called master GUID equal to that GUID value. So I now have, when I run this form, as you can see using this token right here, a master GUID value. And here you can see it starts with 5C7. Now how do I carry this over to job 2? Well, if I had a button right here that said open a secondary form, I'd essentially need to look for this session variable called master GUID and do something with it. And indeed, that's exactly what I do. So in the PHP top code for this job, we already have a GUID value, so I don't need to create a GUID. I just need to assign it to a unique variable. So in this case, then I'm saying, right, if is set master GUID, which at this point it should be, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to assign a second session variable, GUID job 2, equal to that first value. And now when I run this job, you'll notice that I have that same variable, 5C7. When it comes to actually submitting these jobs through then, if I look at the first form, you'll notice that I'm writing to GUID right here, and I'm using S master GUID, that is the token for the session variable called master GUID. And if I look at job 2, you'll see that I'm using GUID underscore job 2. Now there's two subtleties here that do bear mentioning. So the first subtlety here is if we think about it, we could potentially be involved in a situation where Form 1 is submitted before Form 2. And of course that would be bad because essentially we would then have the situation, well, how do I actually retrieve that value? And the reason why that's a subtlety is because I don't want to have session variables sticking around after I already submit the form. And I realize this is a little bit, again, a little bit complex here, but let me hopefully describe it. So basically, when I create a unique session ID, as I've done right here, even after I submit this form, it's just going to stick around. And that's bad form, right? Why create session variables that we don't clear out? And so in theory, what I could do is I could write an unset block that unsets master GUID when I submit the form. But that's extra code, and a nice shortcut is we can simply create a form field that has master GUID as its name, and our RackForms will automatically create that field, or excuse me, delete that field for me when I submit the form, right? So now I don't have to worry about the session variable I'm creating right here sticking around after this form has been submitted. But of course that gets us to our original problem, which is, well, what happens if I submit Form 1 before Form 2 is submitted? So the way that we combat that is instead of using master GUID in Form 2, as soon as we hit Form 2, we say, is master GUID set? It is, great. Well, let's create a brand new session variable called GUID underscore job 2. Now, even when, as I did before, I submit the form before I actually submit Form 2, or excuse me, submit Form 1 before I submit Form 2, I don't have to worry about this GUID value going away. Again, though, to keep things clean, I also want to make sure that this session variable is cleared out when I submit the form. And so therefore I create a hidden field for this. And I just say GUID job 2, you're automatically going to be cleared when I submit the form because all form field values are cleared out when we submit it. But of course, because this is a unique value, it doesn't get cleared out before Form 1 is cleared out. Or I should say even if Form 1 is cleared out. So I realize it's a bit of a subtlety. I know it's a little bit confusing, but we don't actually have to do that, right? Technically, we don't have to, but I just think it's bad form to leave hidden fields sticking around. So that's why I've kind of chosen to do it this way. So as a brief summary of what we've done here, we have two form page jobs. In the first form, the master form that is, I create a GUID and I assign it equal to a session element called master GUID. Because I have a session element called master GUID, I can use a token here to pull that out and write it to the GUID field in the database. In job 2, I have a second PHP code block that says if master GUID is set, I'm going to assign a new variable called GUID_job2 to that, a new session variable, and then I use that in my SQL block right here to write that to the GUID field as well. And then because I don't want these two session fields to stick around and I don't want to write unset code for them, I simply assign those values to hidden fields for both forms so that they're automatically cleared for me. When I go ahead and submit those to the database, this is essentially what it looks like. Job 1 will submit through, and you can see here I have the C36 GUID, and indeed that is what was saved with that record for job 2. Of course, if you have any questions about this job or anything else, please let me know at info@rackforms.com.